Okay, I just finished up an arrow reproduction on an Anasazi arrow that I got from this book here. And for those of you who are familiar with my videos, you've seen this book before. I'll put a link in the description, or I'll put a title in the description of this book. Anyway, I've got this arrow set, or I'm gonna eventually do this whole arrow set and the bow. But this arrow comes from page 223. It's item A, okay? And the arrowhead is yellow chert, okay? I also made a reproduction of this obsidian point for this arrow that I'm going to do eventually also. All right, I try to follow the dimensions as much as possible, but I wasn't quite sure on the length of the tang that goes down into the reed, so I just guessed on that. All right, so when I do, I'm going to show you the measurements, the weight of this a little bit further on in the video, and it'll include this tang here, of course, which it can be variable. I'm not sure if it's actually that long, and there's no x-rays of this arrow, I guess, to let us know how long, so that's just a guess. Okay. So what I did was I made my own notes here, and I didn't write down every single dimension in my notes because I can get dimensions from the book. But what I did write down that I could not get from the book was the spine of the arrow according to the dimensions in the book. The spine turned out to be 38 pounds at 24-inch span, and a total weight of 357.7 grains. That's including the foreshaft and the arrowhead. These two foreshafts I weighed separately. I went ahead and made an extra one that has an arrowhead that I've seen in other collections of Anasazi or ancestral Puebloan arrowheads. Okay, so I just went ahead and made an extra one. This one here is on this side here. It weighs 92.1 grains, and the other one weighs 89.8 grains. Now, if I cut the tang a little bit on this one, I can equalize the weights. So that's one handy thing about having a tang. You can adjust the size of the tang and equalize the weights. Okay, and this arrowhead here, I weighed this one. It weighs 12.5 grains. I didn't put the dimensions on there because I can get it from the book. Okay, let's see. I think that's it for the dimensions that cannot be gotten from the book. One interesting thing about this reproduction is it has cotton thread wrappings. Okay, so I put cotton was available to the ancestral Puebloans. So this is cotton thread. Now I didn't make this thread. This is store-bought, but it is 100% cotton. And on the bottom, I put the cotton thread here just above the nock. The nock also has a wood plug in there to fill the void, as it says in the book. And this is mesquite. So what I did was I just carved or sanded down a piece of mesquite heartwood, skinny enough so I can insert it into the void of the nock with hide glue, waited for it to dry, and then saw it off. You know, I sawed off that piece, sanded it down, carved the nock. You can see it in there. The node of the reed is right here. So that nock plug didn't go in very far. But with nock plugs, you don't have to have the node right next to the nock. You can do it practically anywhere as long as your glue is strong enough. But in this case, like in the book, the node is right here. Now, I went ahead and used sinew to wrap the feathers because it works really well because it shrinks down and holds the feathers really tight. If I use cotton thread, even though I'm using hide glue with the thread and it can wrap very tightly. It doesn't shrink down, and I was afraid that the feathers would eventually loosen up if I used cotton, so I used the sinew. And these feathers are from a pheasant, a venery reeve pheasant. It's kind of a rare breed, but they look a lot like owl or hawk feathers, so I like using these for reproductions. But don't worry, these are not real hawk feathers. It just looks like it might be. Okay. Now the pattern here, at first I thought it was going to be hard to do, but actually it's not bad. And I kind of cheated and used the Sharpie to do the black. So what I did was, this is just a large chisel tip Sharpie. What I did was I just painted this down to this point and then started again here. I left that little gap in between all the way around. Now this solid color, you can scratch in these lines with a knife to show the wood underneath. And I practiced up a little bit before I actually did it on the arrow itself. Let me see if I can get a spot here. There's one spot that I missed. Let's see if I can show you how easy it is actually to scratch a line in with a knife. So you just take a knife and drag it across, and there you go. It just scratches a line in there. And you just go do several of those. It takes a little bit of practice to get them evenly spaced. Even with practice, you can't do it perfectly, but I don't think the real one was perfect either. Okay, so that's what I did on that. I think that's about it. The tip of this does have a slight taper. Okay, the walls of the cane are thicker than this, and what I did was I just tapered this down, and it matches the diameter of the base of this foreshaft at the shoulder. Okay, and I put a little dot here on the shaft so I can align the tang in here, because it only goes in one way easily. It goes in more than one way, but this is the easiest way for it to slide in. I'm not going to use any glue. This is just friction fit. So I put a little dot on the foreshaft to line up with the dot on the shaft. Okay. So yeah, it's just a friction fit. The only difficult part, I think, of this arrow is getting it and keeping it straight. This node down here and this node don't want to stay straight. Overnight, it bent out of shape last night. So what changes in humidity, the cane, the Phragmites, does change its shape, but it's still pretty straight. But yeah, if I were to go hunting with this or whatever, I'm not going to. This is for display. You know, you'd have to, or I'd have to re-straighten every time I go out. All right, but for display, it's okay. It's hardly noticeable. Another thing is, before you can paint or draw on this with a Sharpie or glue onto this Phragmites reed, you have to scrape off the wax. See how shiny the shaft is? There's a natural wax on here. You have to scrape that off before you can paint it or glue on it, or the paint or glue will come off easily. Let's see, where is the... Yeah, so before I put the marker on here, I had to scrape off the wax from the shaft. I can never find where I put my stuff down. You see what I mean? Let's see. See the shiny wax coating? It's a natural wax coating that is very resistant to glue and paint. So just lightly scrape it off, because you don't want to scrape off the hard shell. You just want to get that wax off. Okay. And then you can do whatever. All right. Okay. I think that's it. Let's see here. Yeah. All right. I'll be doing some more of these in the future. In the near future, I'm going to be doing a lot of these from the Southwest. Puebloan style bows and arrows first. I do want to finish up the Pueblo type research that I'm doing, because that is on my list, my priority list. And I'll be sharing that on video too. Everything that I'm going to be doing as a reproduction, I'll share on the video, whether I'm keeping it or sending it off to someone else. Okay?